Hi guys, this is the video for the tentative bibliography portion of your next research assignment. Unlike the research file assignment, this one has a lot more details. So I'm going to walk you through some of the ins and outs with those. Let's start with the simple basics. For your tentative bibliography, I'm going to need to see a hard copy. So you're going to need to turn in a piece of paper. And on that piece of paper, there should be 5 sources, entries for 5 sources at a minimum. So I'm going to guess most of us will just have 1 sheet of paper to turn in. So if you're looking at a sheet of paper with 5 sources on it when it's time to turn it in, you're probably in the ballpark. Okay, so let's get into more of the details. As you research and you come across sources you want to use, you'll need to track your publication information through a method that the MLA handbook is now calling containers. It gets into more details. And the bad news with this is these are pretty boring, and they're also a really big deal. The way you track your publication information will be the way your readers can verify your research. So if you mess this up and a reader can't locate your research to verify it, your research is invalid. And if your research is invalid, that is a huge flaw with your research paper and will have a negative impact on your grade, a significant one. So it's important to keep track of the details. Now, the good news is following these details has gotten a lot easier than it's been in the past. So now MLA uses what are called these container templates. So instead of having all these super specific details of formatting, you have some pretty basic information you need to track from source to source, and it needs to follow a specific order, which means it's basically the same track of information for a video as it is for a book, as it is for a web page, as it is for an article. So that will simplify things in the long run. But let me walk you through a few specific sources. Okay, so hypothetically speaking, let's say I've chosen Creighton University as my nonprofit that I'm thinking of donating $5,000 to. And part of my research is going to include their mission statement. That's a good thing. That's a good thing to know. It's a good thing to be able to cite in my paper. So I happen to have a screenshot of the web page that presents their mission statement. So I want to cite this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this template, and the first thing I need to find is an author. Well, an author has to be a person. It can't be a university. It can't be it can't be anything other than a person or individual people. Okay, mission statements don't usually have authors. So when it comes time for citing that part of the research, I'm just going to skip it. There's no author there. So then I just drop down to the second one, the title of the source. Well, the title of the source is right here. It's the mission statement of Creighton University. So that's going to be what I fill out here. So that'll be the first element of my source because I don't have an author. So whenever you have information lacking, that's going to be more normal than abnormal. That's going to be more common than uncommon. You just skip that element. So, okay, my source, the title of my source will be the first element that I'll have for the container. And then from there, the title of the container would probably be, the container is just the source itself. The title of the container would probably be something like About Creighton University. Something like that, because that's the web page. So I'll go into that, and then I'll just keep working my way down these requirements. Other contributors, nothing. Version, probably not anything. Number, publisher, the publisher is probably Creighton University. I would just poke around the web page for that. Publication, for the publication date, usually if you scroll down to the bottom of a web page, you'll find it. And then for all this container 2 information, for a website, there probably isn't more information than that. Like I'll probably be able to stop with the location. which would be the web address. All right, so that's how I would handle this one. Now, let's say I went into the Newsbank database, which our library has, and I talk about this database in one of the other videos. So let's say I found this Omaha World Herald article about a program at Creighton University, and I want to cite this because it might pertain to my choice to give them money, what Creighton University is doing to build new facilities and all of that stuff. So as I look at, as I look at all this information here, this one's probably going to be more thorough than a website. So the first thing, of course, that I need to look at is an author and the title of the source. Okay, so for an article on a database, I'm going to find the information I need right around here. So my author is Kelsey Stewart, and then the title of the source is the headline right here. So that's how I would fill that out. And then I would work my way down. The Omaha World Herald would be the title of the Omaha World Herald would be the title of the container. Their other contributors might include the edition number, etc. For this one, when it came time to get to container 2, the title of the container would be the database name, which is Access World News here, but you find it on Newsbank in our library online sources page. So it gets more involved, and you want to do a good job. Some of us really like to use videos and kind of pause the videos and have the videos walk us through it. If you're not somebody who likes to do that, that makes a lot of sense. I'm not someone who likes to learn that way either. I struggle that way. So if I were you, some sources I would consider using are the Purdue OWL, Purdue University's online writing lab, and I would just go into Google and type Purdue OWL MLA citations, something like that, and they'll give like a list that you can read through and follow. Or, of course, the other option is your research packet, which you might remember I have saved for you on Canvas. You also should have a hard copy for it. So use those if like watching a video doesn't really help. Just have that piece of paper in front of you and go. And I will also have hard copies of this MLA template, and you can use that in class. I'll put it on Canvas, all that stuff. So when it comes to formatting your bibliography, there are a few rules you still need to follow as well. So basically, if your bibliography follows what I can call the 1-second test, you're probably doing way more things right than wrong. So for the 1-second test, your sources need to be alphabetized, they need to have hanging indents, and they need an MLA heading. All right, so let's talk about specifically the hanging indents and alphabetical order. So here's a cutting from a works cited page that I just found on the internet, or a bibliography. So you'll notice for alphabetical order, it doesn't really matter if your sources have author names or just titles. You put them in the order of the first element in that list of containers that MLA follows. So this goes Holt, Landsteiner, and Rhine. So it's alphabetical order. Hanging indents are these little indentations within each source. So the first line of the source here takes the longest space, and then you hit the indent after that. So we start with the first line, and then we indent from there. That's a hanging indent, and I'll be able to see that in a second. So if I can see, you have alphabetical order and hanging indents and an MLA heading. That'll take me like 1 second to check. And what that'll tell me is that you're trying. Beyond that, there are rules of punctuation. And if you use that MLA list, on each line that you'll use, they'll show you what that punctuation ought to be, whether it should be a period or a comma or nothing. So hopefully that will simplify things quite a bit. But if you can pass the 1 second test, you're doing great. The question always arises, Ms. Ayers, can I just please use EasyBib instead of going through all these steps? And the answer to that question might surprise you. I'm going to give that a definitive maybe. And the deal with EasyBib is it can only be as smart as you let it be. So if you just plug in a web address into EasyBib, it'll give you an entry. But trust me, it will be wrong, it will be flawed, and I will be able to spot it from 50 paces. However, if you use EasyBib, the way I'm recommending you use those MLA containers, that MLA list of containers, you might very well be doing the same thing. And MLA can work if you take the time to plug in that information. So you got to put the time into it. And if you're willing to do that, yeah, an EasyBib created bibliography could be just as good as one somebody does carefully by hand. So if you find yourself slamming through EasyBib, I'm going to guarantee you're doing it wrong. But if you find yourself working thoughtfully through it, the odds are good you're using it appropriately and correctly. So yeah, if you're willing to put that time in, go ahead and give it a shot and maybe have me look at it and we'll see how it turns out. Okay, guys, this was a ton of information. Good luck. We're going to take our time working on this. Make sure you ask me questions. The earlier, the better.